Okie doke, we're back.
Hey, look.
It has taken us some time tonight
We're going the right direction.
talking about getting through the tough times.
Yep, it was giving us one.
It was.
You know what? Sometimes you got to, since we're going to talk about getting through tough times, sometimes you got to remember to go to your main center and turn on rotate. And that'll solve a lot of your problems.
I can't share this to my page because you're logged in as you on my Facebook.
We're having problems tonight. Must be a good one.
Must be, because
Michael
I'm
Berry
supposed
say,
to be talking to Grace and telling her to come on and tagging her, but
feel a good one coming on.
it is. Hey, everybody. Yes, we fixed it. We did. I got to go to my messenger. Start talking.
She's just going to take a brief timeout from our broadcast.
I am not. I am actually.
She's
It's about our broadcast.
Yeah,
she wants to
true.
follow it.
That's true. Now tonight we have a new lighting system, and we're running at 3,400 Kelvin at 12%. This is only 12% of the light that we can get. So it's a new toy that we bought. Hope it's working better. It certainly is kind of nice for us. We don't have.
We look a little yellow to me.
Well, we can perk that up.
But
a little
anyway,
bit.
we are really late because we've had a lot of technical difficulties, and I was blaming Facebook, and it wasn't even Facebook's problem.
There. Now
So did you get the nosebleed to stop? Yeah, we did.
Oh, that's all you people
Still
care
yellow.
about.
Still yellow. That's part of what we're going to talk about tonight. So I think our coloring is way off, but I don't care about that because we want to get started because we are 20 minutes late, Todd. Let's go.
All right, now we're at 4,000 Kelvin.
Okay, so let's just go ahead and talk about this.
I mean, why we missed last week?
Yes, that's
Is that
fine.
this that we're talking about?
That works. Go ahead and start talking. What
Well,
happened?
I can tell you that since last week, I carry a lot of these things around, just in case, had a situation with
Lots of problems.
miscellaneous random nosebleeds that were posterior. They were apparently way up here, and it was an aorta type that bleeds pretty good. Let me tell you something.
It was not as bad as he makes it out to be.
The funniest part of the whole week, trust me, there was nothing fun about sitting over there regurgitating blood and everything else coming through, all that good. Yeah. However,
Keep going.
my son was sitting over there at the table, and when it first happened, it just went kaboom. I still remember the expression on his face. He was like, "What's happening?" It was not worth the price of admission.
So we are talking about getting through the hard times, and we are running really late, and I know this is going to be a long one, so I want to get started because...
It may or may not be a two-parter, but we'll see.
Well, we were going to set an alarm for 9:30, which would have been 30 minutes
now.
into it. And we got started so late. This is the reason why EMT has tampon in it. Yeah, but they wouldn't give it to us that night.
No EMT's going to do it.
So the very first night when we called the ambulance, he felt like he was passing out. He lost a lot of blood. There was a lot of blood clots coming out from the mouth because it was going from the nose. Okay, we're going to do this in a very speedy way. The ambulance came because I wasn't real sure what was going on. And they said, well, if y'all just get some tampons, you can put those up in the nose. Well, then they saw the clots, and they're like, you need to go to the emergency room because they didn't know for sure. So then... Anyway, 2 nights in a row at the emergency room. He's fine. It was really bad stuff, and I get it, but it was really just a nosebleed. But it was a severe one,
Prayed
and
for
it was
healing,
a big deal.
declared the healing. Each day I get up, I declare the healing, and we go forth.
Yep, it's fine.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
now, that's kind of what we're going to talk about, getting through the hard times. But we're going to talk about...
It did create a little bit of a hard time for us.
Well, a little bit. But there's a lot more harder times that you might be going through. And that's kind of why we want to talk about this. Now, this I'm probably going to be like so fast because we just took so long getting on. We tried 4 times starting this video.
Uh-huh.
And it just didn't work.
It didn't work.
Nope.
They don't need to know why.
No. Well, some of it was my fault. because I turned my phone to where, your pictures don't rotate.
Yeah.
So his partner at the office needed to look at some pictures. So I fixed my phone where it wouldn't rotate. Well, apparently when you go live on Facebook, it doesn't
It
rotate
affects
because
that as
of
well. There
So,
you go. There's your tech lesson for the day.
I learned something. So through this little nosebleed, there's a couple of points that I can hit with one story. And that is what you're going through a catastrophe or
An inconvenience.
an inconvenience?
On my side of the room, it was a catastrophe. And her side of the room, it was
A major inconvenience.
an inconvenience that was going to borderline on catastrophe if I didn't stop acting so childish.
Yeah, not really, but he was acting childish. So one of the things that we want to talk about with that is...
Wait, you're going to tell him about Dr. Angel?
Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny. We went to the ER room, and Doc, if you're watching, hey, high five to you there. He was enthralled. He was the ER doctor that was there, and we were just sitting here doing what we do here.
If you're going to tell the story, you
Oh
gotta
my
tell
gosh.
it right. He was this young doctor who looked like he was 12. He was probably 32, somewhere in that neighborhood, but he looks like a baby. And he's sitting on the chair. He's in his bed laying like this for me, and I'm sitting in a chair back here on the wall, and the doctor's sitting up here between us. And all of a sudden, and we're talking back and forth like this, and just having a good time. And I'm like, I can't believe you're such a baby. And he's all like, but you don't understand. I've been holding my nose for 45 minutes.
It hurts.
And then Dr. Angel is sitting in his chair, and he is just going back and forth, and he is just grinning. And then he goes, have y'all ever done open mic night? And I'm like, well, no, he won't even sing. What are you talking about? I mean, I would go karaokeing if I had somebody to go with, but he doesn't do fun stuff.
Just do comedy on
And
stage.
he goes, y'all are so funny. You're so entertaining. I could just sit here all night and listen to y'all. This is just so much fun. So then he told him about us doing this right here, and he went and actually wrote down what it was called. So
he may be watching this one in the future, or
so
maybe
Dr.
even
Angel,
tonight.
hey, if you're there.
A word of advice for Dr. Angel. We're not that funny. You need to get a life.
I don't know. Maybe we are.
Maybe we are.
We hear it a lot.
I don't know.
Okay, so we want to talk about, life. This may get serious, and I may cry, and then we may laugh and joke some more. So just letting you know, this one's kind of
We never did really introduce ourselves, I guess.
Oh, your turn.
That was just our
That's
cover-up
your
for all
job.
the things that are there.
Your job.
All right, everybody, guess what? You already know this. You're already here. But for those people who are tuning in later, this is another episode of
What Really Matters.
What Really Matters. This is my beautiful wife, Michelle.
And this is Hot Toddy.
You bet. And today our topic is
Getting through the tough times.
getting through the tough times.
How are you going to handle it? Because sometimes we don't do a great job. And then sometimes we do a really good job.
Yeah.
It just depends. But that's kind of what we're here for. So let's get started.
It's like the opposite of good times. We could do like a TV show or something.
Could.
Tough times.
Tough times. Let me tell you something. Everybody's always like, or you hear a lot of times about if you're a Christian and you've got God and Jesus and all this stuff, why do you, it's not really always going to be a bed of roses. You know what I'm saying? It's not like just because you're a Christian, tough times don't hit your life, because it does. I mean, you're going to have the things that go wrong in your life. God never told us in his word that things were going to be perfect and we weren't going to have sadness or, pain. He's just there to help us get through it. As long as we turn to him through it, that's going to help us. But don't turn against each other. And that's it's just a really short little thing, but it's really not, because we want to describe some of this. So we didn't really talk about who was going to talk about what.
We all know who's going to lead. Hit it.
I am going to talk the most, because that's what I do. There's a line from one of my favorite movies, The Alamo, and it says, "It's not what you say, Travis. It's how you say it."
We use it all the time. That's what we should have put on that Facebook thing the other day. What's a phrase in your house?
Yes.
That one would have been one.
And part of it's because it's okay to communicate with what's going on, but, be careful with how you're saying what you're going to say. I learned, a long time ago, I would have just been, and all mean at him.
What did that mean?
me like yelling, just being ugly.
Went all dinosaur.
And yet now it's like I can get up and say, today is just not a good day.
You do.
And don't jack with me because I don't know what's going to happen. It doesn't really give me freedom to be mean to him.
Those are called Tuesdays and Thursdays.
I don't have set days. It could be 7 days a week. You don't know.
No.
So one of the things that we want to talk about is communication. It's not just being able to communicate. Some people think as long as they're talking at each
Not
other.
just with words, huh?
It's how you're discussing things. Like even now, you and I, when we're talking, you're asking questions or you're adding things. But when you do that, there's times he overtalks me, which y'all have seen.
I've dialed it way back.
And he has, because
I only do it a lot instead of most of the time.
Pinch his nose. But
oh, don't do my nose.
oh,
What the heck is wrong with you?
see, he's a baby.
Catastrophe.
Okay, so communication is making sure y'all, you communicate, and you need to learn how to do that. And that's not our main thing to get through, but that's a big one. Learning each other's love languages, which we've gone over, and which we'll probably bring that up every time because it's a big deal. So when you're going through hard times, one of the things that we went through a few years ago, when I say a few years ago, probably 20 years ago, we lost everything we owned.
Well, except for
the clothes on our back.
Furniture.
Okay, let me rephrase that.
Lost
we
a
lost
house.
our house. We lost our cars.
there you go.
2 of them.
That's about it.
Material
all the
things.
other stuff we kept.
Wasn't
much of that.
I got rid of a lot of the stuff that was in the house.
Yes,
we're
we
not going to
did.
go into the story of
Nope.
what happened or
Nope.
why, because there would be a lot of blaming other people. Because
We had our fair share.
but I mean, there were reasons that happened, but that's not what we're here
That's
to talk
not the
about.
point.
The point is, while you're going through something like that, where you're losing everything you own, or maybe a really bad medical report, or the loss of a parent, which we've both experienced, that is not equivalent to these, I'm telling you. But you have to be careful of playing the blame game.
Yeah.
Do not start blaming the other person
Right.
for the bad times that are happening. When we're talking about this particular time in our lives where we lost everything, I could have blamed him.
Yep. I could have blamed you.
And he could have blamed me.
we actually did the opposite. We actually grabbed a hold of each other
and just lifted each other
and
up.
planned how to get out
Right.
of this together.
And so there was actually a story. This one really will tug at your heart. And that was when we were watching the videos for one of the marriage classes we took. And one of the ladies in there, they had like 7 kids. I mean, like they interviewed these people and what they had learned along the ways. And they actually had a baby that drowned. She was giving the child a bath, and she went to answer the door. And I mean, she wasn't gone just seconds. And somehow that baby drowned and died. And let me tell you something, between the guilt of what she felt as a mom and the blame the dad could have put on her for that because she left the child, all of those things, and I don't want any negative comments now about what she should have done or shouldn't have done or any of that, because none of that's important. What I want to bring from that is that this marriage, that particular marriage, went to hell and back.
Destroyed it.
But they stayed together because they chose not to be blaming each other, but to get through the grief together. So that's part of what we want to talk about is even through the really difficult times. Now that one was a really difficult time. We just lost some material things.
That's correct. I can replace those, but
yeah. So they
replace
didn't blame each other.
Baby Johnny.
You want to do the next one? So we're talking communication, love language. Don't blame each other. Take responsibility for your own actions.
I can't read that.
Can't read what?
What does that even say?
You're right here. Acknowledge and feel your feelings.
That was,
The reason why I gave this to him is because
I
he
gave it to
how
her.
to he doesn't know how to do this one.
Acknowledge and feel your feelings. First, let's define what a feeling is, because I need to know. Hit it.
Well, there's happy.
Oh!
There's sad. And there's angry.
And then there's
And then there's
whatever that is.
So I'm really irritated with you. No, so we need to acknowledge and feel your feelings.
That means
so,
you're a human being.
right.
You have emotions. You have feelings. They're up, down, sideways, and crooked. Recognize that and own it.
And share it.
And then you got to let the
nicely.
What we're talking about is what we do right now in terms of a lot of these issues.
This is not where we were a long time ago. No. We have learned this over the years. One of the things I will pat us on the back for is the communication that we have now compared to especially where it was. But even we have a lot of people who comment on that. His partner at the office, that's one of his big things is he's never seen anybody communicate like we do. Of course, we kind of have to. We're together 24/7.
Yeah, I'm not so sure it's us. It's really more you. You're the great communicator.
Well, yeah, you don't communicate at all, but
I just did. I just did a great job.
You did.
But you bring it to the forefront. You're the one that's patient and deliberate. Those are two good things to have when you're communicating. Patience and deliberate. And I mean in a positive, constructive way.
Right.
Just because you're feeling hurt doesn't mean you lash hurt feelings out. It means you acknowledge them, express that to your partner, or friend, or whoever you're going to be around that day and say,
right.
hey,
I mean, this could be your family members.
I'm having an issue today with this, so if I slip up on some of these areas, please cut me some slack. And then deal with it. We're going to get to that as well.
Right.
But, I mean, it's not an excuse for you to be a jerk or to be all whiny. It's just acknowledging.
One of the hardest things for him to do is to acknowledge his feelings. And it is. And what he does is he turns it to his work. So, like, his mom passed this year. All of y'all know we've talked about it quite a bit. And I'm just boo-hooing and bawling all over the place. And he's not. I mean, he is, but not really. He just has a couple of snippets. He's like, I had a really good cry today. And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah, I cried for a whole 5 minutes. And I was like,
that's a long time.
Well, yeah, considering who you are. But, I mean, so what I'm trying to say is we need to acknowledge there's times that you're going to be angry with me over something. And most of the time it's not really even anger. It's going to be, I mean, unless I really did something to, cause him to be angry. But most of the time it's going to be we're sad about something else that's going on around us, or we're angry about something else that's going around us, or we are wanting to vent about something that's going on around us, but then we lash out and we're not taking responsibility, or we justify it. I'm having a bad day, so you owe me and you're going to take care of me today.
Get over it, bud.
Get over it, yeah. And so you can't do that either.
Every time I treat you bad, don't put it on me.
Don't justify being an angry person.
The way I am today. Nope.
But you do talk about it, and you need to. The reason why you need to do that is because you're going to be able to work yourself past it. So, today I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, as they say. And there's times that I've woken up and I'm just already angry at him, and I'm just like, I don't know why this is going on, and I don't need to be angry at him, so I'm going to turn that off.
It's true. There's some mornings I can actually see, it's kind of a spiritual thing because she doesn't actually crawl over my side of the bed, but I can just see it coming over my side of the bed to get out, and I'm like, uh-oh, not a good day.
But I've learned not to attack you with it.
No.
Years ago, I would have attacked you with it. Now I do not. So you want to make sure you work yourself past what it is you're going through. We're going to get into some more meat with the actual going through a process. I know I'm talking too much.
No, just listening.
Okay.
Where are you?
You're right there.
All right. We're going to... now, we've talked about the controlling of the issue, and then there's prioritizing self-care. What does that mean? Prioritizing self-care.
Well, because most of us, mostly your mamas out there, some daddies, but most moms, they make sure that dad's taken care of and the kids are taken care of, and maybe their own parents are taken care of, siblings. I mean, they always put everybody else first. A lot of moms out there do that, especially with their own kids, and if you have littles. And so prioritizing self-care, we forget to take time for ourselves, or we just don't make time for ourselves.
Are we talking like bubble bath?
Bubble baths, taking a nap. That's my favorite. Bath. Just let me take a nap. I just want a nap. What else do I have down here? Oh, find time with friends. Go out with your friends. Hubby can watch the kids. Go have lunch. Go have a cup of coffee. Go shopping. Do something, but the most important one is...
Guys, it's not babysitting if it's your own children. We hear that all the time. Anyway,
Yeah, I agree.
and spending time with God.
That's where I was getting to. Was the go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
that's where you were heading.
That's
I was
where
just
I was heading.
Putting your wheels back on the track.
Prioritizing self-care is.
You were told that today too, weren't you? Funny story.
Not a funny story. I had a bad day, y'all.
She had a
really bad day.
She had a client today call and just jump all up and down her, up one side and down the other, and
it wasn't even
none
my
of it was
fault.
even her fault. But the guy actually said that she had jumped the track,
Nope, that's not what he said.
something of that nature.
Told me I
It was
needed
off
to
the track.
learn what my job was and start proofing stuff and quit just doing things, and none of it was mine. But that's okay. He was probably just having a
All
bad
right,
day.
so
It's
Steve, if
fine.
you're watching,
Oh my gosh! You're going to spend time with God. Prioritize your self-care. Is time with God, because one of the biggest things that I can tell you I notice with myself is sometimes I'm not feeling well. I don't have things, just on the inside of me is not feeling well, and I'll tell him I don't feel well. I don't know what's going on. Usually it's because I haven't been spending enough time with God, because you kind of get that inner peace and that joy and that love. And if you've lost that, when the tough times hit, it's really hard for you to get through it. Yes, he is. Very funny. You're so funny. So we're talking about communication is important. Learn your love languages. Quit blaming each other. Acknowledge your feelings. Talk about it. Prioritize self-care. And
it's
what's
a long
next?
list. Are you all keeping up with this list?
I got a whole bunch of them.
Consider if it's a catastrophe or just an inconvenience.
Right. Are we making a mountain out of a molehill, or is it really just a molehill? I mean,
Y'all know what a molehill is,
oh,
right?
he's just giving me a hard time. So,
It's a little,
I don't know why our dog is whining.
They don't hear it.
upset. Chloe's crying.
Well, I'm going to make her cry some more. So, we're talking about, is it a catastrophe? Dial it down, guys. Most things are not a catastrophe.
Because we usually magnify all the big
I mean,
stuff.
have you lost your house?
the
Have you
little
lost
stuff.
a limb? Have you lost a life? Okay,
But
catastrophe.
even still,
even then,
well, but look at there are people. I mean, you hear all these stories all the time.
Yeah.
They do lose an arm or a leg for real.
they overcome.
And they're like, what's wrong with you? Especially these guys that, in the military that lose everything, and they come home and they're all
Right.
like, what's wrong with you? I'm still good. I've got this or whatever.
We're kind of assuming that too in this entire exercise, that the individual recognizes that in the events of having a major event in your life, overcoming is what we're speaking to. We haven't really put it out there.
Right.
But I know in our culture today, there's this major embracement of, oh, I am broken and that's just who I am. No, you're not. God didn't create you to be broken that way.
Well,
okay?
it's okay to acknowledge the fact that whatever you're going through, it does break us.
Yes, in
We
a
do
spiritual
become
way,
broken,
in order for you to align
but
with
then
God.
we let God repair us and move forward.
But if you got all these other
So-
issues and problems that are not productive in your life, that are dragging you down, those are not of God, and those are meant to be overcome.
Okay, so now let's talk about practice acceptance. Meaning,
You've had an event.
right?
You've discovered that it's not a catastrophe.
Right.
You're going to practice acceptance of the situation.
And let go of the fact, because you can't change it.
Right.
Like, I couldn't change today when this guy, now mind you,
Could have hung
I
up on
really
him, but that
get
wouldn't
it.
have gone over well.
I really understand this is like a molehill, but it's what happened today. I mean, I could have really blown that up because this guy was really nasty to
Oh, it
me
was
on the
directed
phone.
right at
and
you.
it was directed at me, and he was very
Personal.
mean, and it was a very like a personal attack. But was it one of my kids was in a wreck, or
Yeah,
was it,
you should have just
no.
dropped right to the floor after he
So-
got off. It was like, whatever.
Right. That's one of those things you let go. So after you start accepting it, there's some things that you cannot change in life.
No.
I can't change the fact that my mom died 15 years ago. I can't change the fact that your mom died earlier this year.
Right.
And those two are probably two of the toughest things. I can't change the fact that I had a miscarriage
There you go. That was one I was
3
gonna
years
bring
ago. That's huge. It still messes with us sometimes.
Still
about
part
that.
of our life. We didn't forget about it. It's still part of who we are. But
But
we're
it
not
didn't-
stuck in
but
that
it didn't
time.
break
It didn't
us-
freeze
yes.
us in that zone.
Right.
It doesn't define who you are either.
Right.
And that's what we're coming up to here shortly about letting these things define who you are because of the things in your life. All right?
Right. Well, because even if some of the stuff was your fault, because, well, I mean, who doesn't have some responsibility in what goes wrong? We all do sometimes.
Unless you
Right.
actively go out to screw up your life and do stupid things, that's not necessarily who you are.
But even if you did let the past go.
I don't mean once or twice. I just mean, okay, there's some losers out there. I get it, and they're living that way. But I guarantee you that nobody wants to live that way.
Don't live in your past. That's
Don't
all
live
I'm
in your
saying.
past,
Don't
no.
hang on to it. Don't bring it
What
into your
happens
future.
when you live in your
Don't
past?
because you just keep reliving, like you're not allowing yourself to change and grow and get past the past. And
Let's give an example. I always said,
Well-
I used to do this thing with her and say, oh gosh, you've got all this stuff down in your purse. You carry it around with you all the time. This is from a long time ago. And I said, and when it's convenient, I see women do this a lot. Guys do it too.
Okay, well,
they
I'm
reach into
actually-
that. They reach into that handbag and they pull it out and they wag it around in your face and say, "This is what you did 25 years ago."
I'm talking about for your own personal self.
Yes.
Like, don't do that to yourself.
I know,
Don't
for
beat
yourself or
up
someone
and
else,
say,
yes.
"Well, if only I hadn't done this, I'd be a better person today." Well, you can still be a better person today.
Yeah.
You just don't hold on to that. And with what you said, there's some things that you said and did that we
sure
laugh
did.
about now. But, I don't want to bring them up and throw them
No.
in your face because that's not who you
it
are
doesn't even
anymore.
apply anymore.
Right.
Right.
So ask for help.
That's a good
Oh
one.
my goodness. Ladies, we are horrible at letting our men know what we need, or our kids, or whatever. Well, some of us are. I was horrible at it. And
Is this where the martyrdom thing
yes,
comes in?
and
There
he
it
used to
is.
tell me I was a martyr, which I didn't even understand what that meant. And
All right, for those of you who are confused about the use of the word, I
we
used
have
to
a
tell her.
friend who thinks that being a martyr is actually being nice because you're doing something for everybody else.
No, martyr is someone who sets up a symbolic sword or a spiritual sword in front of them and then throws themselves, impales themselves on it to make a dramatic point of over dramatization of
Well,
how selfless and sacrificing
what a
they
lot
are.
of women
and it's a bunch of
do-
hooey. And it's usually used against you as their final death wish
Well,
upon
a lot
the
of
scene.
women, here's some examples. These are small ones. We're using small ones right now. I'll come home from the grocery store wanting to bring in groceries, and I will ask for help. Nobody responds, so I bring in all 50 bags, and then they come in there to help, and I'm like, oh, I've already done it, so y'all didn't have to.
Did you see that attitude?
I did it because I didn't want to have to bother you. I mean, that's not how I would say it to you. Well, I don't know. It depends. I might. But,
and- And so we're like, all right.
right. Because the guys are all like, well, if she's going to do it anyway,
We'll just wait every
we're
time.
just going to wait. And so you're never really...
Yeah, you create your own
well, we have a friend of
self-fulfilling
ours.
prophecy of martyrdom.
We have a friend of ours. I don't think she'd mind me sharing this story.
No?
That, in Fort Worth. So her husband, she always would go to the grocery store and come home, and he would bring in the groceries. And one of her friends
Right.
said, how do you have him trained? How did you train him to do that? And she goes, well, I didn't have to train him. I just told him, I'm buying the groceries, you're bringing them in.
Hey, that's called communication.
And that's it. That's all it took. That's all it took.
That's it.
You communicate, and you do that with your children, with your spouse, with your coworkers, with your parents. I mean, it works. Our next one, we're really getting down to just the last two or three. These all kind of mesh together.
They do. You guys know which ones apply. Not all of them directly apply to everybody, but in terms of keeping up with, asking for help, you also have to know who not to ask for help, and those are the toxic people in your life.
Right. Okay. So everybody has somebody that's toxic in your life.
What does that mean? What does toxic mean?
Toxic means that you feel really, well, from my word would be ugly around them. You just feel sick inside. You just feel,
They bring you
berated.
down.
They bring you down. They make you depressed. It's a very toxic. They're always putting you down.
Belittling
They're
you.
always belittling you. It's very toxic. Now, before we get too far into this, the one thing I am gonna say is,
Oh, she's gone.
there's
Gonna tell on me.
Facebook Nazi. No, it's because all these memes go around about being just because they're your family. If they're toxic and their blood, then you can walk away from them. And I'm gonna tell you something that I learned from his family.
Yep.
And that is family's family, and you want to stay with them. However, with that said, you set boundaries. This
We've
is
got
what
a whole
I'm
video
going
on boundaries. Go
to
look at.
allow in my life with these people. Yeah. Now, his family, we didn't have to set too many boundaries for. There was a few things that we didn't want around us.
We didn't live out there, so it wasn't that necessary.
Well, yeah, we weren't around them that much, but there's still just a few things. So my point is, say you're a child and your parents are just constantly telling you how horrible of a parent you are, or that you haven't done this, or they're just, whatever. Maybe they're just bad parents in general. You still want to have them in your life. Still be around them.
Dress right.
It could be 15 minutes.
Right.
It could be 15 minutes every couple of months. It doesn't have to be.
You can.
Blame game is very easy.
You
Kristen.
can define even the worst person in your life a role in your life, but you can control it. You can set boundaries.
Well,
you can invite them in and exit them out. Don't let them roam into your boundary areas. You can define that. We have a whole a video on boundaries that talks specifically about this, so you can go there and give much more insight as to the kind of boundaries.
Some rules.
Everybody
parents,
needs boundaries.
When your kids grow up, you need boundaries. Not all topics of conversation should just be on the floor.
That's correct.
Just because you're used to talking about everything with your son or with your daughter, sometimes at a certain point, especially if they're married and they've got kids of their own, even though you're super close, you don't have to be talking about everything in their life and everything in your life. You don't know when, talking finances or even having more sex talk, because my kids are used to talking about it with us because we're pretty open. We've always been pretty open with, and when I say open, I mean, we don't hide the fact that we want other people to have a good time in their own marriages. But it doesn't mean that this is a conversation that needs to always happen, because you don't really know.
About us. We mean open about the topic in terms of that being something.
We're not making it taboo.
It's not about us.
But
that's a boundary.
But you don't know when that might affect your children when they go home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Plus, your boundaries can change as they get older, and different people have different boundaries. Boundaries are meant to be set and then changed as needed, up, down, sideways. You know where, and that's how. But you got to have one to know where to move it. So
yes. So
that's
you're
important.
going to when your
brother. She's reading a note.
Oh yeah. It won't let me see everything you've said, so I'm going to respond to that later after we're done. But for the first part that I did get to read,
it only shows that much of it.
I'm sorry because that sucks. It's just not good. We are right down here.
Right here.
Yes.
All right. Most important thing. We went through this big long list of all these things to do, not do, consider, claim, etc. Don't forget, just like everything else, call an end to your crisis.
Right.
Establish an end. If you're going to get over something, you got to know when it's over.
Right.
And that's up to you.
Yes.
Unless you're in a ball of flames, that's not up to you. That's in the middle of an event. But after the event, it's up to you as to how you deal with it, is to establish a relationship of completeness
with an understanding.
With an ending.
With an understanding that everybody processes differently.
Correct.
So
just because I'm done doesn't mean you're done.
Right. But you want to here's the biggest thing I can tell you to do. You want to step back a little bit and kind of watch as an outsider to whatever your catastrophe is that we're watching. Whether it was his bloody nose, which was, of course, not a catastrophe, or, somebody's, I would say a death in the family is pretty catastrophic.
Definitely do it. That would do it.
So But we're all going to heal differently. And but you need to kind of step back and see.
Right.
Because I can tell you right now, I did one really, really dumb thing after his mom died. Probably a couple of months or 6 weeks or so after she died, I sent my kids this text message, just bawling and apologizing for being a horrible mom and oh my gosh,
A little bit too much
and
introspection.
it was and it was a lot, but it was all of my
the kids didn't understand a word of it.
No, I got so many phone calls.
They're like, what's wrong?
It was grief.
It actually scared them.
It did scare them, but my point with that is everybody needs to look at yourself, look at what you're going through, do calling into it. And one of the things that we let ourselves do was, every weekend we're using this particular, thing that this is what has impacted us recently. So after losing a bunch of weight and we're on keto and we're doing all this really good. And then we're on the weekends and we're like, we're going to eat what we want because we're mourning. Well, after a while,
it just became an excuse.
It just was an excuse.
It just became an excuse.
So the calling and into it is, really, are we still going to be using that as an excuse and just gain back all of the weight?
We're just being lazy.
Right. So you have to look at yourself and be honest.
Yeah.
Really
hit the table?
Are you really going to continue to stay wallowing in your self-pity, basically?
Pretty much.
Or using it as an excuse to get other people to feel sorry
let's
for you or
face
whatever.
It, in the event of a crisis or any life event, some people actually run towards it. They take momentum. I'm going to raise money for this. I'm going to I mean in a positive way.
Okay, yeah.
They'll run straight after it.
Yeah.
And say, this is not going to control me, and that's their coping mechanism. That's your type A personality. I'm going to wrestle this thing to the ground and take control. The opposite is also true, where you recline from it, and you just want to hide from it for a while. You just want some peace and quiet. That's me. I just want to be left alone.
He just wants to work. If he could just work, that would be fine. I just want to work.
Nobody bothers me that well. They do.
I just want to work. I'm going to take my work to the hospital.
It doesn't necessarily mean one thing or the other. You got to read the room. So read the individual.
Right.
Most importantly,
everyone takes a different amount of time to heal. We've covered most of that. The part that I was going to share with you is just there's like 4. We're almost done, so I'm going to finish this. You already said it.
Okay.
You already said it.
You are not your crisis.
Already said it. You are not your crisis or catastrophe or mountain or what was the other thing? If it's not a mountain, it's a molehill. But what's the real word? Inconvenience. Not an inconvenience.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
All right.
That does not reflect who you really are.
No.
I'm going to go over, there's a few things that were our big life events. Okay, so when we got married, and we've talked about this a little bit before, first of all, I was 16 and married the first time, divorced at 19, met him at 22, got married 6 months later, 22. And found out I was pregnant again, well after we were married, but just... it was just crazy fast. So my life from 16 to 22 was nothing but being a wife and a mom, and I wasn't even finished being a teenager yet. Now, that's all on me, and I get it. I had a horrible first marriage. We're not going to go into that. I am not... I don't regret anything in my life, okay? There's been some bad times. There's been some tough times. I would not change anything in my life, including that bad marriage. I might handle things differently now if I could know what I knew then.
Sure, all of us. If we knew what we knew now back then.
So when we got married, I was not really nice, and there wasn't going to be a man tell me what to do. Just wasn't. I was a little immature. So one of the things that he did was said, divorce is not an option. And he would just go in the closet, and he would just kind of scream, and he would just be, divorce is not an option. It's not going to happen. And so that's been our mantra. Divorce is not an option. And we have, basically beat that into our kids. When you're getting married, you've got to remember, divorce is not an option. You are not getting married to get a divorce.
By our kids, we mean both.
Yes.
In-law as well.
Yes.
It only works in loves. It only works
if both parties are.
Both parties have to be in 100%. don't go into a relationship with somebody who's iffy on that topic.
The only reason why we see a reason for divorce is, abuse, of course. Get out as fast as you can. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, physical abuse.
Yes.
I would have to go as far as saying if he wasn't providing for me, like he was just a drunk that's out there not working, of course.
Yeah,
those
we
kinds
actually
of things.
know a few people that are just kind of leeches that that are actually.
So there's a couple of reasons, but divorce is not an option. So he had to go through that. The first 3 or 4 years of our marriage was kind of tough like that, wouldn't you say?
There was a very you make it sound it is bad, but she feels very personal to it. I don't remember it as bad. It was bad. Don't get me wrong. And
he's just being nice to me.
There was a lot of times where events happened. It was highly emotional and very high highs and very low lows. Okay, and after a while, we recognized this extremely large sine wave in our life, and our goal became, let's try and limit the tops and bottoms.
I will say this.
And that's why we're talking what we're doing right now.
I asked for therapy for so many years.
Yes.
And it did not happen. So I'm going to tell you out there, get therapy.
We didn't think we had the money at the time.
But I wished we had it.
I wished I could have redefined the things that were valuable to us and rededicated that money to those areas, even though we did not have a whole lot of money. We had a lot of things that we were taking care of.
I would have tried to figure something out to go get help. But
that could have fundamentally changed the family faster than anything else we would have put that money to.
So if you're married and one of you wants to go to therapy and you don't want to go support the other one, you need to go. Y'all need to do it together. This is not a one-sided thing.
That's important. We've actually had that brought up a number of times with a number of different people in different directions coming at us. It seems to be a very prevailing theme.
Right. You go get fixed and then I'll join you.
It's the attitude right there explains it all. You're broken. I'm not. That right there is therapy for both.
And that was his problem. That was his problem.
You
didn't want therapy. I'm kind of telling on you, but I don't mean it. But you did not need therapy.
I'm not the one flipping a wig. And yes, I was, because I wouldn't dedicate time for us to deal with that situation.
Let's get on. I've got 2 more quick things.
Okay.
Well, we did the miscarriage, but we've already talked about that. I got really angry at God. It took me 2 or 3 days. Somebody told us, well, you got to be really careful with that. Well, God already knows my feelings are hurt and I'm upset. I might as well talk to him about it. And I did, but it took me a couple of days of really getting angry because, it's part of my mourning process, right? You got to mourn. This was a death.
It's true. It's funny because I remember that part of our life as well. And I, too, have shaken my fist at God. And I think a lot of people have. More people have than haven't. I just don't think they're willing to admit it because there's so much shame and it's very negative. People look at it very negatively. If you have a relationship, any relationship, have you ever had a relationship where you don't get angry in that relationship? And oftentimes the anger's here. You're getting angry at a situation that you may have actually caused. I don't think God throws his children out because you've shaken your fist at him.
I didn't really shake my fist. I just let him know how upset I was.
But I think it's raw.
I don't know.
And I think it's real. And I think it's part of the relationship.
But he already knows how you're feeling.
The problem is when people tell you, you can't do that, they're casting a judgment on you. And a lot of times that becomes deep-seated and creates a whole new host of problems. That's what I'm speaking to right now is be honest with your relationship and move beyond it, and everything's going to be great. If you sit there and shake your fist at God for a year, then you got a problem. But if you just do it for a situation, we're good.
Yes.
I don't think you're going to hell.
I didn't
challenging some things you don't understand in your life.
Yelling and carrying on. I just expressed how upset I was. Okay, so we've had the very first part of the marriage. Divorce is not an option. We had a miscarriage, and that was way harder than I ever dreamed it would be, to be honest with you.
Yep.
And then along came Todd has anxiety, and it's almost down to nothing with him eating keto. But there was a time, my kids were all little. Oh, my goodness. I don't even know if that one was born yet, the one that's 22. maybe. And
No, he wasn't.
he wasn't
Or
here
if
yet.
he was. He was
I don't think
in
he's here yet.
swaddling clothes.
And he was so we are talking a little over 20 years ago. And he there was one whole week he just didn't get out of bed and all this other stuff,
it
and
was
I
bad.
didn't understand. And of course, again, we've talked about this before. Back in the day, the church was very big on, you have the mind
Mental
of
health.
Christ. There's nothing wrong with you mentally, yada yada yada. And so with the anxiety, I was just like, nope, we don't play that game. Get out of, you know what I mean? And so I kind of let him do it for the whole week. But even still, of course, at that point, that's probably, therapy and medications and all that stuff would have been better. And he did finally go get on some medication and stuff. But the part I didn't understand, and this is what I'm getting to, part of your getting through the tough stuff is that was hard. That was one of the hardest things I've gone through because he's the breadwinner. I'm at home with all 4 of my kids, and maybe 3, maybe the 4th one here yet. I don't remember. And so I'm trying to deal with the things that I need to deal with, and I have zero tolerance for this. I have zero tolerance because I don't understand it.
Right.
This is just, nope. You need to put on the mind of Christ and let's get out of here. This is done. We're done. And part of that's the way
She
we were
was
taught.
calling an end to my crisis. But you know what? There are times and places for that
But
because
the
it
part
helped
that I
establish
want-
that in me.
The part that I want to point out is over the years, I've done research. I've talked to my daughter who's got a little bit of anxiety and stuff, and she helped teach me and shed some light on, what he would be feeling. Because he wouldn't explain it to me because he didn't even want to actually act like he had it. But she talked to me a lot, and then when I went to therapy a few years ago, I even learned some more. So over the years, I had to learn to be there for him in ways, because when I'm telling you he had anxiety attacks, I don't mean little baby ones. I had to
we're
leave.
not talking panic attacks.
I
Everyone's
left
scared. We're
St.
talking
Louis to come home.
Yeah.
How many trips did I have to come home for
2.
you? Because I went out of town and I had to leave like in the middle of everything. I'm not putting him down. I'm explaining to you. It was so bad that I had to get home and basically be on the phone with him the whole time I'm traveling almost to get home, so that I could basically baby him until, a couple of days of babying. And then I'm like, okay. And then I'm a drill sergeant and you're going to get your butt up and you're going to do this. But he knew the routine at this point. But I took the time to learn and understand and get him through that. And I could have not done it, and it would have destroyed our marriage.
right.
Eventually.
You didn't.
So
You didn't have to get it, but you could at least understand there's an issue. You may never understand what it is I'm feeling because you probably
it's been
can never
a while.
do that unless you're in that situation. It was a fundamental life event inside of me that is unshareable because the common words that we use don't work well to express what's going on inside of the chemical disorder that's going on inside your brain. So those are some not fun times that are really challenging. But the point being that all these different things we've talked about, communication has been through every bit of it.
Yes.
Communication is the pivotal point of whether you're going in or out of something.
Right.
And you get to choose what you communicate and how you get there. Now, your partner might not be all in on that, and that creates a challenge for you, and we recognize that.
well, that's where you have to talk about it and try to come into an agreement.
But we weren't at the same spot at the same time either, and guess how we got there? Yep, slowly communicated ourselves to a common area that we can both share safely, and that we
You
share
wanna know
daily
one of the
as
big
we go
things
through
that
the
helped-
things of our
One
life.
of the big things that helped us was, to be honest with you, okay, a crisis for me was my kids growing up and moving out. One of the hardest things that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. It was debilitating for me. For the first year when they both went, when the
Right.
2 of the kids. My daughter moves out. She lives just right down the road. I've got 2 that take off to Missouri together. One that's still at home, and that was a whole nother nightmare. And he knows what I mean. I don't mean it ugly. I'm homeschooling and Asperger's and all this and
there's
stuff.
issues.
It was awful. And so that was a whole nother nightmare. But at the same time, as we got through that, is when, we're able to lean on each other more and do the things that we're needing to do more. So I think that's part of it. But we've been on for an hour, so we need to pray.
The kids may have gone and done their thing, and the time that we used to dedicate to them, we're dedicating back to you guys right now. We do it with us, but we're sharing that information right now. Hopefully this information will help save you guys some time in your research and development of creating a healthier relationship.
Right.
I mean, that's where it is most every single time. But communication is always...
I keep trying to not go long, but we went long.
Yep,
but
we knew it.
We need to pray.
All right. So we're going to wrap this up. You going to pray or am I?
You're praying.
All right. Father, I thank you and I praise you. Gosh, Father, I just thank you so much for your grace and your glory. So many of us have done so many things. We let that go. It's who we choose to be in the future with you, Father, right now. We all choose to be in line with your will and your way. The things that we've done in the past, we cast that to forgetfulness. We don't care about that anymore. We choose to make decisions henceforth that we will be in your will, that we'll dedicate ourselves to communicate and grow and join together to lift each other up, to create healthy relationships that would reflect your glory. As we read your word and your scripture speaks through us, so does your way move through us to other people. Let us all be a vessel that we can share your glory and spread the word of your great glory, your great your graciousness, and how you can move in everyone's life and carry them through every situation. And we just ask that they just put you out in front of them and guide their lives, be guided by you everywhere they go. May the Father's grace and glory be with each and every one of you as you go forth this week. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. There you go. Okie doke. So y'all like and share our page and our videos. If anything speaks to you, let us know.
If our lighting looks funky or good, let us know that.
If you have any topics that you want us to talk about, let us know, because I'm going to be trying to get several things prepared. Recently, we've just been doing a lot, you can probably tell, of winging it because I've been extremely busy at the office, but I'm going to try to spend some time this weekend on at least getting some topics lined out that we want to address over the next, couple of months. So
we're going to be driving,
we can
so
get better. Yep. So y'all have a great week. Have a good weekend. And we're supposed to have really bad storms, so I pray for protection over everybody
late
tomorrow.
Afternoon and evening.
So, good night.
Good night.